This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and coming up here on the show, big game in the NFC West between the 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday afternoon. Here are my keys to the game, matchups to watch, what the Niners must do to win, and of course, I'm going to give you my prediction for this ball game as well. And I mentioned it being a huge game in this division, but it also has a lot of NFC playoff implications. And look, I know we're going into Week 10. Playoffs are going to be here before we know it. This NFC is so closely contested, and so a win over the Rams, a sweep over the Rams, could do wonders for the Niners' hopes of winning the division, thus hosting a playoff game, also where they could be positioned in the NFC. And so you look at the NFC West standings here. The Niners might be in third place, but they have the same amount of wins as the Rams and the Seahawks. They win this game here on Sunday, they elevate up to first place in the division. What's also working for San Francisco, they are 3-0 in this division. The Seahawks only 1-1, the Rams 0-1, and the Cardinals 3-5, 0-2 in the NFC West, but did get a quality win over the Dallas Cowboys last week in primetime. And I mentioned that NFC playoff picture. Right now, the Niners are the number 6 seed. You win this game, you can move into a spot where you host that playoff game and you can be a top 4 seed in the NFC. Now, how the Rams stack up on offense and on defense. On offense, led by Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, an improved offensive line in Kyren Williams. They're 8th in points per game at 26.1, 7th in yards per game at 369.9, 7th in yards per play at 5.8, 16th on third down. So sometimes they can struggle to stay on the field and move the chains in that money down area. 39.5% there. In the red zone, they're converting at a pretty good number, 60% for the red zone touchdown scoring percentage. On defense, one of the top units in the NFL, number 2 in points per game allowed at 15.9, number 10 in yards per game at 302.9, 5th in yards per play at 4.7, second best third down defense, second best red zone defense. So in those critical areas, they have thrived this year. How the Niners stack up on both sides of the ball. It's a lot different looking than what the Rams have been able to do this year, but still, San Francisco, despite the margin of victory not being high as far as the scoreboard, they've still been able to churn out 6 wins so far this year going into Week 10. 23rd in points per game at 21.6, 10th in yards per game, so they're moving it at 352.1, 16th in yards per play at 5.4, 3rd on third downs at 47.1%. Could be a huge key in this game. 20th in the red zone at 56.6%. You'd like to see the Niners get better there, but they have been better of late, and they were certainly pretty good, 4-5 against the Giants. On defense, what a job Robert Saleh's done. The big number that matters here, points per game. 20.9 despite all these injuries and all these moving parts. Now, they are giving up 332.5 yards per game. That's 17th, but who cares if you're keeping teams out of the end zone. Yards per play, 5.5, that's 20th. Third downs, 18th, 39.2. Top 10 red zone defense, 53.5%. So they have been the definition so far of a bend but don't break defensive unit. As far as my keys to the game, matchups to watch, if the 49ers can't get a pass rush going in this game, no bueno. It's going to be a long afternoon. Matthew Stafford is in the thick of the MVP race. He's having one of the best years of his career despite him being in his late 30s. He has been awesome this season. He's completing 67.2% of his passes for more than 2,100 yards. Look at the touchdown to interception ratio. I think this is number 1 among all quarterbacks because Jalen Hurts had a bye week last week. Hurts is at 20 total touchdowns to 2 total turnovers. So 21-2 is the touchdown interception ratio for Stafford this year. Yards per attempt at 7.8 and a quarterback rating of 113.2. The fact that the Rams offense has become more balanced has obviously done wonders for Stafford and this overall offensive unit because they're so difficult to defend. And obviously Stafford has a couple of really good weapons on the outside. Puka Nacua, once again, putting up crazy numbers. He's been targeted 73 times this year, and he has caught 61% of those 61 of those targets. That's ridiculous. He has 711 yards. 11.7 yards per catch. I wouldn't say he's like that explosive, but he's so steady, he's so physical and hard to bring down, and he's so consistent. 3 receiving touchdowns as well. Davante Adams doesn't have the receiving yards that Puka has, but his targets are very similar. 70 targets, 36 catches. I think the biggest difference there and why he doesn't have the hit rate that Puka has, Stafford targets him downfield a little bit more. Adams still has nearly 500 yards, but you see the receiving average at 13.6, and he's been the explosive player, but also on some of those back corner fades and some of those red zone plays and throws, he has those 8 receiving touchdowns this year. The Niners pass rush rankings this season. Again, if they can't generate a pass rush against Matthew Stafford, it's going to be a long day. They have 11 total sacks this season. That is tied with Brian Burns of the New York Giants. That's tied for 29th. They have 98 total pressures. That's 28th among the 32 teams. Their pressure rate, 29.4%, second to last in the NFL. What can Robert Saleh cook up and draw up? The risk is when you devise and draw up blitzes, sometimes that can burn you on that back end. And if there's one team that can really take advantage of that, it's the Los Angeles Rams. Key to the game number 2. The Rams do have a sneaky good run team. And I really like the balance that the Rams offense possesses, right? You have Matthew Stafford, who can be under center or in the shotgun. You've got 2 really good receiving threats. Jordan Whittington is a pretty good player as well. The tight end production has been pretty good too. Ferguson has been a young player who's made some splash plays so far this season. But running the ball with an improved offensive line also leads to a lot of play action for the Rams. And so they really stretch you thin with the way that they call the offense and what they're able to accomplish. And you think of the Sean McVay high-octane offense as being a pass-happy team, they run it a lot. And like Kyle Shanahan, they're at their best when they can get the ground game going. 132 carries this year for Kyren Williams, 586 yards. That's 11th in the NFL. He's averaging 4.4 yards per tote with 3 rushing touchdowns. Now, a big thing for the Niners this year, and this was their biggest point of emphasis this offseason, it was improving what has been a lackluster run defense. Last year, 29th ranked rushing defense in the NFL. This year, they've been a top 10 unit. Number 6 going into week 10. This is why I wanted them to trade for a pass rusher to improve the pass rush. You're already good against the run, and it just makes the entire defense better. Key to the game number 3. Can the 49ers offense find some balance in this football game? Again, I just alluded to it. In Kyle Shanahan's offense, when you can really get the run game going and establish that, it makes the quarterback's job so much easier. And it makes the Niners as an offensive unit so much more difficult to defend. Even when Jawan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne are your top wide receiver options with no Ricky Pearsall and, of course, no Brandon Ayuk. And it's no accident that this Niners offense has looked its best this year in the 2 games, and only 2 games, where they have found success running the ball, when they've gotten downhill, going less zone, more gap and power scheme. Against Atlanta and New York, that's when the Niners have had success on the ground. Against Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, 39 carries, 174 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Kyle Shanahan, once again against New York, one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, wanted to get to about that 40 carry mark, and it paid dividends. 159 rushing yards, 4.1 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, B-Rob against the Giants were really good, and I'd love to find a way for Brian Robinson to get on the field more. Can you do more 2 running back sets? Can you line up Christian McCaffrey in the slot because he's so dangerous there and poses a different threat from the inside wide receiver spot? Brian Robinson is a pretty solid player. The issue, though, with this is it's easier said than done. When the Niners play bad defensive lines and bad defenses, they're fine. But because their offensive line is so mediocre, when they go up against good and stout defensive lines, with their mediocre offensive line, they struggle and they get exposed. Key to the game number 4. The Niners are underdogs for a reason. The Rams giving 4.5 points to the Niners on the betting line. The Niners in week 5, with all those injuries, they were 8.5-point underdogs. Why is that? Because the Rams are a better team. And I would say they're far superior to the Niners. Now, in these divisional games, and with Kyle Shanahan knowing Sean McVay very well, they're often close, and you can see a lot of upsets. But if the Niners mess around, if they turn the ball over a lot, if they don't execute, if they play sloppy, they'll get blown out. So like they did in week 5, in this game in week 10, the Niners need to play a near perfect game. Think about everything that went right for San Francisco back in week 5 on Thursday night. They won 26-23 in overtime. They took that early lead to really establish momentum in the game, and they put pressure on the Rams. And while the Rams came back, that early lead really helped to decide the outcome of the game. Mac Jones had probably his best game of the year, despite him getting bruised up because he was hit so often in that game, and he was already hurt going into it. 33 of 49, 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. You got a great game and contributions from Eddie Pinheiro. He was 4 of 4, including a 59-yard kick, and you came through with some really crunch time clutch plays. And you're going to have to do that in this game as well, because this game will be decided on the margins. You had the Alfred Collins punch along the goal line that helped keep the Rams out of the end zone because Kyren Williams was on his way to finding the paint. Probably would have lost the game if that happened. And then in overtime, you got the 4th-and-1 stop. So a lot of things went the Niners' way on the road as 8.5-point underdogs in week 5. Going to have to get a repeat of that, or at least close here on Sunday. And then key to the game number 5. And a big matchup to watch, because this is a combination of all that. Attack the Rams' corners. Now, in the passing game for San Francisco, they did not have George Kittle back in week 5. He's going to help out this passing attack a lot, and he really hasn't gotten going on the receiving end yet with Mac Jones at quarterback. They just don't have that same rapport that Brock Purdy and Kittle have. He's going to have a breakout performance at some point. He's also played a huge role in getting this ground game going. Now, obviously, they linked up on that beautiful touchdown connection against the Houston Texans, but if you can utilize George Kittle against this suspect secondary for the Rams, that could be a big key and matchup in this ball game. But this Rams secondary, specifically at corner, as you see here on your screen, it's just not a good unit. Darius Williams, a little bit banged up right now. He's not an elite corner by any means. Emmanuel Forbes, a former first-round pick who is kind of a bust. He's long and lengthy, but that's about it. Kobe Durant plays on the inside. Quentin Lake, they made that trade for Roger McCreary. That makes them better, but it's certainly not a needle mover. So predict the score, Rams-Niners. This is always one of the best rivalries in the National Football League. Predict that score for me down in the comment section. As always, I want you to have a voice on this show. My prediction, I think the Niners lose this game. And I think a big reason they lose is the inability to get a pass rush going against Matthew Stafford. They just don't have a lot of bodies right now. And among the 32 teams in the NFL, their edge rotation is one of the worst in the league. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong with this prediction, but I think the Niners' lack of pass rush hurts them. And it's really hard to repeat the type of performance that we saw from the Niners in week 5, where it was a crazy, fluky game where the ball at times bounced the Niners' favor, and they had to get perfect performances from a lot of other players, like Mac Jones, career game. Kendrick Bourne, career game. Eddie Pinheiro, incredible game. Alfred Collins, legendary play. It's hard for that to repeat and duplicate, especially against a team that's hot, especially against a team that's one of the best in the NFL. So I'm taking the Rams 27-23. We'll see you for our watch party on Sunday afternoon. And if you're watching this early on Thursday, we're going live soon on the San Francisco 49ers Report.